Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this afternoon session on digital twins track, but specifically looking at the information side. So when I ask you a little bit later to put your questions into the Slido thing, okay, look for digital twins information rather than digital twins technology, which is tomorrow, because we're looking at the important thing. I think we're doing the important bit rather than the kind of like, the technology bit type bit, the stuff anybody can do. The information bit, of course, is the really, really important side. Now, I made a few notes just to chat through the session, because I'm not very good at remembering these things nowadays, being an old man. So hang on, there we go. Information, that was the one there. So it's the foundation of digital twins. It's what gives us the baseline of value to everything that we do. We've got to make sure we have the right information. We have the validated information. We have the managed information. We have the correct labeled information. We've got to have all that stuff. And if you don't feed that into your AI or your wonderful virtual reality system or any of the incredible tools out there, then quite frankly, your technology is a waste of money. So we've got to make sure that we understand where it comes from, how we make those decisions, where we make the decisions, who makes the decisions, what information was used to make those decisions, and how valuable those decisions are. So what I've got three awesome speakers going to talk about the various parts today. I've picked three areas of digital twin world that we don't normally stray into. So the first bit is the financial side of the digital twin. How do we actually define and finance what we're doing? What information do we use to finance it? Because the bottom line is, if you can't finance it, you can't finance your project, you can't finance the end game, you're not going to get anything. The delivery side, how do you make sure that the information that you are generating, that's been specified, that is being used to make decisions, is correctly managed, well validated, and shows exactly what's happened, the provenance all the way through? And then finally, of course, why are we doing this in the first place? We're doing so we've got an operational facility or whatever that might be to deliver that. So I've got my three wonderful speakers here. Pete's going to talk to us about the financial world. Ivan's going to talk to us about the delivery side. And then Matt or Smurf, and I'll come to that why later on, we're going to talk about the operations and the maintenance world. So first up, I've got Pete. Oh, there we go. I missed the technology bit. Those are the speakers, cracking guys. You'll meet them in a bit. First one up is Pete. So you can read what's up there and it tells you lots of things about Pete. But I wrote a few little notes about Pete because I've known him for quite a few years. So he revolutionized innovation in Crossrail from a coffee shop. Okay. If you wanted to do innovation and deliver probably one of the most complex parts of Crossrail, you wouldn't find him in an office. You would find him in the coffee shop outside because he wanted to talk to human beings and to innovate in a better way. So, Pete, up you get, mate. You're on first. I'm going to hand you that.
Thank you.
Click that bit there. Oh, so those are the questions. Sorry, bud. So do the Slido thing on there. Get your questions in. Don't make them anonymous because that'll be good. And when the panel comes up, I'm going to put your panel over here because I don't know whether you saw last time the poor guy that was sitting down the front. Panel questions on there, and somebody written, is it best to do it from the top down or the bottom up? And all the guy had was bottom written across his chin. Which made me laugh, but I didn't put it down. So please get your questions in, but no writing bottom in any of them. Okay, just in case. Right, don't forget social media. And Pete, you're up, mate. Left and right.
Okay.
Press the right one. All yours.
All right. Hello, Pete. Yes, you've probably seen me by the end of this as the black sheep of the group. but I need to let off a little bit of steam first. I was phoned up out of the blue by Ian Miskamin, who proceeded to shout at me, swearing down the phone, shouting, "Where's the fucking money? Come down to Brighton, start an argument, I'll buy you some beer." That's what he said, and then he hung up. It kind of got me thinking, I've been spending 30 years now working in the construction industry, and they're all I then realized that maybe that there's actually always been a bit of an issue with money. And I remember working back in the 80s, I was working on projects that just seemed to go on forever, and the budget was just like a bottomless pit. And the only reason people left that project was because they was bored of it. There was no end in sight. Now that was back in the 80s. In the 90s, I started working on safety critical projects, thinking, all right, this is it. This is important work. This is safety critical projects. But then you can clearly see that the main contractor is retreating backwards over the hill, facing forwards, telling everyone that everything's all right, but they disappear off the project 95% of the way through. And you think, oh, Christ. Now, this was in the 90s, 2000s. There wasn't computers. It was all paper, and your signature was kind of used as evidence against you when someone wanted to kick the can down the road. But then digital comes along. We go on to the next big state-of-the-art digital one-to-one scale project. We're playing with, does anyone get some water? Maybe I'm drying up. So we're playing with models on mobile devices. We're creating innovation programs, and we're using applications to increase productivity. And yet the project goes over budget, and everyone kind of blames the technology and/or everyone else, everyone except themselves. So thanks, Ian. Oh, that's better. Right. And then, of course, there's all the conferences. I've been going to conferences now I'm trying to get this as far away from me as possible. I've been going to conferences now for maybe the last 15 years, having to listen to the industry tell us all how well they're doing, despite all the issues. Oh, and I'm probably obliged to say that as far as conferences go, Comet conferences are probably the best on the circuit, if not the planet. Yeah, you're welcome. But we are still having to talk about money, and we're still, even before, with adopting new technologies and people just embracing change. So I think my only challenge for me to let off steam, because it's kind of frustrated me over many years, is that if you are, it probably doesn't matter whether you're going to build the next state-of-the-art, fully digital project with a one-to-one scale model, all guns are blazing. When you eventually hand over to an operator late, and it's going to be late, the operator is then going to have to spend possibly thousands, if not millions, engaging with software engineers to help them figure out how to build how to work their BMS system. Sorry, it's over here. Where's it gone? That's the only issue putting it over here, I'm afraid. I've got to walk across. So it was kind of, okay, it was winding me up a little bit. I've actually come from the construction industry on the ground, muddy boots. And I've experienced this throughout all of my time in construction. Every time something comes along, a new change comes along, we end up believing that we've embraced that change, but then we always go over time and budget. It doesn't matter whether we're working with paper or whether we're working with BIM at the moment. So if you are creating the project, the next project, which is fully digital and everything, you are going to finish late because the industry doesn't really want to change. And you are going to have to engage with third parties in order to get your brand new project up and running. But here's a little quote. This is from an old chairman of mine. He's been in the industry now for about 60 years. I believe he built Spaghetti Junction back in the late 60s. That was another project that went over budget. He told me that up until the pandemic, it was reported that there was over 12,000 infrastructure projects sitting on a shelf, collecting dust, totally unfundable. But at the same time, there was billions, there still is, billions of dollars of investment actively searching for projects to invest in. He said the reason for this is because this industry has got a lack of transparency and absolutely no line of sight between the money and the expertise, the projects. I've been working with him for 6 years, and we created a financial model that would actually address this, create that line of sight, and also kind of benefit the whole industry, the supply chain as well. So it was quite holistic. And it only kind of comes with a small wish list, and that wish list is that the money actually I'll just refer to them as money. The money actually believes that the client should be the operator. They think that's a really good model. That way, I imagine it shows commitment and you're actually building for the outcome because it's in your interest. The second part of that wish list is that that client potentially then owns all of the data that's generated throughout the entire life cycle of that project. And then if they understood just how valuable that data would be, and if they then standardize that data, and I'm sorry for swearing again, standardize their construction data, the money would love to trade it on the secondary markets. And then that allows them to tap into trillions of dollars that are funded, that are being traded on a daily basis. And then finally, please design your models no less than 80% before you kind of want to start construction. I think Crossrail started something like 13%. It certainly wasn't 80%. But if you could kind of cover just two out of those three examples, there's kind of absolutely no reason why we couldn't really have something like this in 5 years' time if we changed now. So I'm getting very dry, very apologise for that. Must be nerves. Now, I know what you're thinking, this looks a little bit familiar. I have ripped it off of Netflix, but this is kind of what we could have had in 5 years' time if we changed now, that kind of, draws on, pulls in some of the information. So I do apologise, I'm slightly, not nervous, I'm just, for some reason, I'm feeling a little bit funny.
Thanks for your back. I'm glad you're less.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So this went so well while I was on the beach earlier, having me cup of tea. No, so yes, I've ripped this off of Netflix, but it's the same sort of model. And these are not just pretty pictures, by the way. These pictures of these construction models that have been drawn by 17-year-olds in BIM teams that are not really valued in this industry. No, these are, I'm also left-handed. I think that's what it is. I have to be on this side. These would actually have been fully working models, or at least 80% fully working models that allow you to kind of inspect them, play with them. So the reason why I used this backdrop as a slide was because you would go home maybe tonight after this and you think, oh Christ, I've just spent all day in that conference listening to Pete and I want to watch a film. You'd go home and browse through pages of films until you find something that you enjoy and you want to invest your time in. An investor might log on to something similar and browse through pages of mature models, find the project that they're interested in and want to invest their money in. And where you would then maybe read the synopsis, they would be reading the prospectus, all built inside. And then you might want to filter yours by genre. You might want a comedy, having come home from work, feeling like it's been a Greek tragedy. An investor would filter these down to maybe a sector or an area. And what he's left with is a series of models that he could then check to see how these interact with each other, how they communicate with each other, if one went down, what's the contingency plan, all the ins and outs of how these begin to talk to each other in the real world. He might be able to play with that idea and see what best meets his portfolio, I suppose. And then when you're happy and you've got your bowl of popcorn, you've got your feet up, you press play. This is the thing about this. The investor would come up with his bowl of money and he would press invest. Now, this being like a fully digital solution actually triggers instantaneous set of steps. So there's absolutely no reason why the investor couldn't choose a model that's mature, it meets his portfolio, it proves that the project, the client, and client is the operator, and they've got standardized data, all that information is in there. They press the invest button, choose on the model that they want, and they could instigate instant bidding, winning, underwriting, bank setup, custodian bank setup, drawdown facilities. Technically, the construction could start next day from the investor pushing that button. That's if we were really to think about changing, there's no reason why this couldn't have happened even 5 years ago, because all of the software exists in the industry. It already exists. All you need to do is to have a combined effort to put it together to create something like my D-Twin flicks. But there's underneath that record. So what's stopping us from doing all of this? I kind of came up with a few ideas, pretty much symptoms really. And the only reason I stopped is because I kind of run out of plasters. But there's a hell of a lot more issues that we could address to begin to start making the change and trying to get our projects in a better shape. Because if your project's in a really good shape, if you've got a decent designed model and you are making every effort to kind of standardize your data and you are aligning yourselves with your supply chain, and you're prepared to use different financial models which are coming out now, the banking industry demolished themselves about 10 years ago and reinvented themselves in digital form. So there's very competitive pricing going on. The good thing about these is that once your bond is created from the pushing that button, the Netflix, where have I got somewhere on there, bond placement. Once your bond is placed on the primary market, the moment construction starts, that bond goes on a secondary market and then is traded throughout the whole of the project, whole of the construction project. And then when the construction's over, that's normally the time you need to start paying back your bond in operation. But you change that construction bond for a stabilization bond and extend it out for the next 50 years. But what's happening is that's being traded on a daily basis, earning X million, billions, whatever. It's being traded every day. It's very volatile. Plus all of the data that's being generated off a project is also on a secondary market, earning the client revenue. And that then can be shared throughout the entire supply chain because it allows participation. The secondary markets allow all of the industry to be able to trade the data off of one single project. So this didn't go how I'm a bit dry, Maybe, yes, I'm a bit nervous. I'm left-handed. There's many excuses I can give for me not getting this very right. Hopefully, yes, and I also not spoke about the money, only the intent, how to attract the money, the investment, the finance sector would love this industry to change. They understand that we have quite a lot of tools under our belt. The only difference is we kind of still work in silos. We're not prepared to really standardize our data because we're not working as a group. And if we did, this industry would transform the way that the finance sector is done with data in the finance world. I'm going to go and have a beer, I think. Yeah.
Profit margins.
Profit. Oh well, profit margins. Yeah, it's one of the questions that we thought about was like how you incentivize the industry to actually change. And it was my understanding that the industry works for like a 1 to 3% profit margin on any kind of project. So what our model would do, what the model, or what of many kind of models now, we're not the only one. They would say, well, okay, if you can build it for 100 million, you're telling me that you can build that project for 100 million. All right, brilliant. If you can build it for 100 million on time and within that budget, we'll give you a 20% bonus off balance sheet because they can do that. And you might come back having thought about it a little bit more and thought, well, actually, sorry, it's not 100 million. It's more like 1.2. That's what we've worked it out as. A bank would say, right, go away. But an exchange would say, well, okay, yeah, that's fine. If you can build it for 1.2, the same project, 1.2, but you build it on time, we'll give you a 30% bonus. I think they're just saying, if you say you can do it, do it. Yeah, if you can't, the money's immaterial. It doesn't matter whether it's 100 million or 3 billion, 10 billion, 15 billion. The investment would be there. You just have to have not guarantees. You have to have an informed decision-making process that allows the investment to be really encouraged to invest their money. So there is incentivization in there. There is the ability not to work for your 3%. And if you can do what you say you can do, and you do it on time within that budget, you can get 30, 40, 50, whatever the incentive is. But it has been about just changing, trying to come up with ideas how the industry can actually change without really not doing much to change. You provide them with the tools, let them carry on being as silly as they want, but those tools enable that change to occur. So that's kind of what we've been thinking about and kind of implementing.
Let's have a bit of a conversation because we've got a few minutes on all bit. People have a conversation. Sorry? Microphone. Yes, put it on the microphone. Cheers, Mike. Here we go. Got another microphone on here. So the risk side of that finances. So the reason that you told me earlier on, the reason that you can give a good profit margin is because you're reducing the risk to the investor. Yeah, because you're guaranteeing I can deliver it on the 1st of October 2030 and it's going to cost 120 million pounds. And that's it. You know that project will mature on that day, and that's when the investors get their money back or get their profit margin or whatever that might be.
Well, no, it's the profit mark. The profit is also the constructors, our industry. Yeah. Because the investors can get out any time they like because that bond is not stuck on a primary market.
Gotcha.
I went to visit Bloomberg and looked at. I asked them, "Can you show me the Crossrail bond?" They showed me their fantastic screens and put up the Crossrail bond, and it had a timeline underneath it for activity. Yeah. And it had 0, 6 months, 1 year, and there was absolutely nothing on it because once that bond was created, it was only money out, money out, money out. Right. Whereas that bond being put on a secondary market allows trading to happen every single day. throughout the day. So it becomes volatile and it's earning money. So therefore, those investors that were stuck in Crossrail for 12 years and then are now figuring out to get in there, how to get their return on their investment. Well, they could have just chosen at what part of that curve they wanted to get out of the project.
And one of the
they can sell their shares.
And one of the important things that we discussed over the last few years is there's pieces of information that you need to model, that then you need to measure and monitor to feed back to those investors to say the risk is safe. We're going on exactly the same way as we said we would. It's going to arrive in October 2030. That is the information we need to model. And that's really valuable information because that is the money information.
So that kind of is the point of reason why we would, you kind of want the client to be the operator because then there's commitment.
Yeah.
And then they're going to ensure that their house is in order, that their data is correct, because there's financial benefit for everybody off the back of that. So it's incentivization for them to provide real-time performance data as part of the bond's rule book. It's in the contract. The bond is created. You can build whatever you want, but if I give you our bond, you've got to construct it with a certain level of BIM, certain level of maturity, certain level of timely data. You determine, you determine how timely that data is used in terms of real-time performance.
Yeah.
And then you're just reducing the risk for the investor, but you're actually increasing the ability to complete a project on time for the client.
Absolutely. And so what you're doing in essence is you are procuring that digital. You're defining it and making it part of the original financial package.
Yes.
Not the kind of thing we found in the past, which is towards the end of a project, the project manager will go, well, do we really need that? We've got to finish it on time. Oh, yeah, fine. Here's a concrete and steel thing. Information can come later. But what I'm hearing from you here is if it's built into the financial, built into the incentive, you get that 20, 30%.
Yes.
If you meet the financial criteria right from the very beginning.
Yep.
That's how we need to build it.
And we've also kind of flexible clauses that would suggest Crossrail was what, 10, 12 years?
Yeah.
Right? And the procurement was years before.
Yeah.
So therefore there was certain technology that was around and they thought, oh, that'd be a good idea. But it was defunct by the time that they needed to install it. So, but there's no, was the contract that rigid? For redundant and obsolete materials, but you can write into a rule book for an exchange that you will actively implement new technology as it will come. Because don't worry about the money. The money will be there to kind of absorb that.
If you finance
it
the
correctly
and the digital correctly.
Yes. And only if you are really enthusiastic about creating a mature model and your data is in good order, following all the standards, everything that everyone trusts, it's accessible, usable to all the stakeholders, it's timely, it's reliable, it's complete, everything that the finance lot love, because they love trading everything. And data is what they say, data is the oil that fuels the cogs. So without data. And
we've got to get better at valuing data and information and making sure that we pay for what we need.
Yeah, all these conferences, 15 years of conferences, the main question that has always kind of floated around is why we, first of all, don't know really who owns the data, why we don't value the data, and then why contracts are set up to delete the data at the end of contract. In fact, somewhere on a shelf in Brighton is all of the Crossrail sustainability data. It's sitting on several NAS drives, which the drivers for those NAS drives are now probably obsolete.
And who
TfL
paid for that data?
Well, everybody did, but TfL no longer didn't want it, didn't know how to use it.
So it wasn't necessarily procured by the client. And as
No.
you keep saying that that client organisation needs to be a part of that all the way through, because they will only procure what they value.
Yeah, it's what I can see.
Yeah.
They're not
Yeah. Brilliant.
prepared to spend money on something that hasn't happened yet.
Sweet. Brilliant. Okay.
All right.
Thank
Now,
you very much.
apologies for
Pete.
going dry.
That's great. Cheers. Great. Thank you.